So we're going to keep going. So yesterday we did a lot. Yesterday we did the Crim Center in the morning, and we kind of jumped into this big picture ideas around urban education. And then we got into kind of culturally responsive. So you kind of see we're getting narrower and narrower, smaller and smaller. And today we're going to take all that stuff we talked about yesterday and we're going to apply it specifically to science and STEM and thinking about what will the work that you'll be doing in school look like. And so I'm going to build on the conversation that we had yesterday. So we're just not going to talk about best practices in STEM because that's a big conversation. We'll be here all day. Instead, what we're going to do is build on that stuff we talked around multicultural education and culturally responsive pedagogy and applying it specifically to STEM. So how do you do this type of work in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? All right, so just so you know a little bit more about me. So you know the one hat that I wear as director of the Crim Center. But as a science educator, you probably don't know much about me. And so this is some of the work I've done over the years. So I'm a local science educator. I try to get around, get into schools. I currently teach at the Children's Museum of Atlanta. I'm one of their science educators there. Well, I am the science educator at the Children's Museum right now. I think they're hiring another one. But I teach on Sundays at the museum. I also serve on their advisory boards and things like that because the Children's Museum is trying to incorporate more early learning in science into the museum. In fact, I start this Sunday, so if you got little ones, I'll be back at the museum. I go I do a show at 1:30 and another show at 2:30 with kids. These are my students from Ethiopia. I taught there for about 2 or 3 months, doing science education for, I taught physics and chemistry to teachers in Ethiopia that would be teaching, they would have classes of 60, 70 kids teaching physics and chemistry way out in the bush in Ethiopia. So it helped me to think very differently about science and science education here. I ran a program in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while. It's called the Home Project, Helping Ourselves Mold Education. And it was around parent engagement in STEM. We found that guidance counselors, that if we had white students and black students in Charlotte, North Carolina, the guidance counselors were tending to put the black students in maybe pre-algebra, and they were putting the white students in algebra. Or they were putting the black students in the regular courses and putting the white students on college prep. And these kids had grades and test scores that were very, very similar. And I'm not going to say that it was racism, explicit racism at work, but it probably was some bias and expectations that were going on there with these guidance counselors. And so what we were doing was working with the parents and telling them, you at the end of the day decide what happens with your children. You can go into that school and say, I want my child in algebra, and they have to put the child in algebra. And this is what algebra is, and this is why it's important that your child is in algebra in the 7th grade. And so we were doing some parent advocacy work around STEM education in Charlotte. Let's see, I work with the alternative certification program here. So this is for people that have a bachelor's degree already, and then they want to get certified to teach. It's alternative cert. So the first year you go through the program, you get your certification. Second year you get a master's degree. So it's a great program, and it's specifically for people that want to work in urban schools.
Quick question. Even if your bachelor's is not in education?
Yep. You can be in anything. You could have been in an econ major, right? Yep. Anything you want. In fact, that's one of the most beautiful things about the program is that we have people that are coming from all these fields other than education, and they bring that into the classroom with them.
And is that home or is it the Science One-Shot?
That's home. Okay. This is it's called the UACM. The Urban Accelerated Certification and Master's Program. It's out of this department. This is my home department. Okay. So I'm an early childhood educator. So I'm a faculty member in this department. Yeah. And so it's run out of this department, and it's for people that want to become certified. So one of the things that we're trying to do is create a pathway from teen into the UACM for people that already have their bachelor's degrees. And so we had one student last year that did that. Came out of teen and went into the UACM and kept going. Now he's certified. He's teaching in the classroom as a certified teacher. They have a similar program for middle secondary. So if you don't want to do elementary school, you want to do middle or high school, there's a similar program on the 6th floor for middle secondary.
Could you give that name again one more time?
It's the UACM.
Mm-hmm. What did it say?
Urban Accelerated Certification and Master's Program. And actually what we're going to do, Nancy Schaefer, who's going to come and talk to you about classroom management, she's director of the program. So you can ask Nancy, she'll give you information about it as well, but she'll probably come back at a later date and actually talk to you about the UACM. All right, but we run a summer program out of the UACM at a local school. We always do it at a local school. We've been in DeKalb County, Decatur, APS, and the program is free, absolutely free. Kids can come, and we do science with them for 3 weeks. But what we're doing is we also have the new teachers, the people that want to become teachers, in that program, learning to teach. So it's a field experience for them. The kids are learning to teach. We hire our graduates to serve as the teachers of record. So it really is this great kind of organic program where everybody's learning from everybody. It's fantastic. The Science Wonder Shop is my online presence. I have a Facebook site, I've got a website where I just post things for people that are interested in science and doing more science with their kids. A lot of our parents want to do more science, particularly in early childhood, because we don't teach science in elementary school as much anymore. And so we're doing more and more at home. So if you're on Facebook, you can like the Science Wonder Shop, you can get more information there. And like I said, this is just me, I'm just a science educator. This is kind of the work that I do in and around the world. So I'm really promoting science, but my focus really is on equity issues in science. Why is it that some children have access to science and others don't? And how does that impact their lives going forward? So I always start with this slide. Whenever I go and do talks with people, I always start with this slide, because I think this is probably, this is always the starting point. It's always the end point for us, right, our children. What do you notice about these pictures? What's happening?
They're engaged.
Okay, so kids, one thing you recognize is that the kids are engaged. They're not distracted, they're actually doing the science. What else?
I'm always excited to answer this stuff. They're not white.
Absolutely.
Which I think is vital.
That's important.
It's non-white kids learning what looks like, these two definitely look like science, and I'm only assuming that's writing notes on science.
Yep, she's working in her lab, that's her science lab book. And they're doing, these kids are doing science. And I think it's important to recognize that they're not white.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you got a black male learning science.
That's right.
Super.
That's right.
Important. And then you've got 2 females.
That's right.
Which also shows, it's just showing more guys. I'm seeing
But you're right, because here's the thing is that the stereotypes don't talk about these children doing science. They're also very young children that are doing science, right?
You didn't brush his hair that morning. It's got to talk about it.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Who's not in the picture?
The teacher.
There's no adults. There's no adult standing over their shoulder saying, now do this, now do that, now right here. These kids are self-directing their own learning in science. So it's nice to see what's possible. What's possible. And I put this up here because oftentimes if I don't show people a picture, they don't believe it can actually happen. And it's not like I zoomed in close on these kids to cut out the teacher. These kids were learning science and doing it the way that we think that science should be done. This is real science happening. So let's start with what did you learn. How many of you had a really great experience with science in school? Great experience with science in school? Get your hand up. Or it's just leaning? Just leaning. So you did not have a good science experience in school?
Not really.
Not really.
Didn't do nothing.
Didn't really do anything at all. That's I'd like to say that's rare. So people that said that they had a good science experience, raise your hands high. You had a good science experience in school? All right, tell me about it. What did happen?
Oh my gosh. We got a chance to actually go outside with some things.
Yep.
And actually be outside the classroom and learn that way.
When was this?
That was
What grade?
elementary.
Elementary school.
Elementary, we actually had a little pond behind the school, and we went out there. This was when we learned about pH balance. So
Yeah,
we
okay.
actually got a chance to go to the pond, get water samples, that sort of stuff. In high school, we had a classroom that was set up for science. It looked like science. It was awesome. We did experiments in the classroom.
Cool.
It was hands-on.
Cool. Others that said they had a good, tell me about it.
It was in middle school, and our teacher, he really drilled us on using the scientific method. And I can still remember it from today. And he showed us like different ways that you can learn scientific concepts through like different ways. Like you can use poetry, like make a haiku of different science meanings. And you can draw a picture of like what that science concept is, and then write a summary of what you were doing so that you remember and you have a perfect page of notes that you could always look back at. So.
Okay, that's great. I like that. Yeah.
I have 3 memories from science.
Give me one.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Give me the one that stands out the most.
They all do.
Okay, well, what's the first one you thought of?
I guess in high school in chemistry, I had a really great teacher that incorporated science in a way that we were very hands-on.
Uh-huh.
So when it came to the pH stuff, we actually did physical experiments,
Yep.
and she was very hands-on and actually learning everything. So I could definitely say I learned most about chemistry in that classroom.
Yeah.
And nowhere else.
So that's interesting. You all are saying a lot of things we read about in the research, right? You're talking about actually doing. Like I'll tell people all the time, science is a verb. I know it's not, but science is a verb. It's something you do, right? When you learn to ride a bike, you didn't learn to ride a bike by reading about learning to ride a bike. You got on a bike to learn to ride a bike. Science is very much the same way. You've got to do it to really understand it. So all of you are talking about hands-on opportunities to learn science. You're also talking about ways that you actually connect with interest outside of what we consider to be science. Literacy, poetry, I mean, you have social studies. I mean, there are all these other ways that we can connect science to other things that kids are interested in and make it very real and very relevant to them, right? The other thing I'm noticing is that a lot of you are talking about what happened in middle school and high school, right? And we do better and better as we go up and up, right? By the time you get to college, you get a lab experience.
Mm-hmm.
But early childhood, we do very, very little with science. And the interesting thing is that's where kids are probably most interested in science. That's where they're questioning. How many of you have young kids or have access to young kids? Yeah? Do they ask a lot of questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while you hear them ask a question, maybe. They ask questions all the time. So they're inquisitive. That's the time to teach science, when kids are asking questions. But we don't do it when they're asking questions. We wait till later on, and by that time we turn them off from science. Yeah.
From my experience, middle school was actually the worst experience for science because, and I say it because I don't remember much about science in middle school. What I do, however, remember is one science class, and I'm not sure what it was, but there was a lot of note taking.
Yeah.
Mr. Faulkner, I think that was his name, and we had a field day with his name. But we spent so much time just writing notes, writing, and that's all I remember. I think that was 6th grade.
Did you learn anything?
I don't remember, so therefore I must have not. But I think that, but I'm from Florida, and that wasn't even in Miami. That was in.
Paragraph on the montillation of Traxylene.
Yeah.
Okay? I'd like for you to read about the montillation of Traxylene. You're welcome to take notes if you'd like. There will be a quiz. So pay attention, read it thoroughly, make sure you understand about the montillation of Traxylene.
Okay.
You got it?
No.
You got it down? Good.
Hold on, wait.
Very good. Okay, a little bit longer? All right.
Is this like
No.
an element mixture of elements?
It's about the montillation of Traxylene.
Okay.
All right, you ready for the quiz? Here's the quiz.
Okay.
Here we go. What is Traxylene?
A new form of Zion?
Yeah.
Very good. It's a new form of science.
Yeah.
Very good. Where is it montilled?
In
Sarah-
And where?
I don't know how to pronounce it. It begins with a C.
Yes.
Sestaranski.
That's right. That's right. And how do we questle it?
The people of Sestaranian,
They do what?
they montill it. Oh, they montill it,
They montill it.
and then it's what's that? Oh, no.
Does anybody remember how it's questled? All right, well, okay, I got that one wrong. Well, now this is always because that's the relevant question, right? That's the relevance piece. Because kids, why do I need to learn this? Why is it important for us to know about Traxylene?
Because it's our most. There's an L word. It's that word of. Gosh, what is this word? It's the most localized. Looks aside. Localized.
There you go. Very good.
That's what I was saying.
Very
It's the
good.
most localized. Oh, that's see, I almost had that.
You almost had it.
Now,
Let me ask you a question. Okay. So look at this quiz. Look at these questions again. Look at them closely. If I gave you an opportunity to go home and really study this paragraph, really study it. I mean, think it through, memorize it, get it down, right? Could you pass this quiz?
Yes.
Most of us could. I mean, that's how we did school. Most of us there. That's how we did school. We went and we memorized it, particularly in science. We memorized the vocabulary, what the vocabulary meant, and then we answered questions on a test that asked specifically about the question, the stuff we just memorized. This is the way we teach science. This is the way that, and we wonder why kids get cut off or aren't interested. Because if I asked you 5 years from now, if I asked you at the end of the week, tell me about the modulation of Traxley, you wouldn't remember a thing. You wouldn't remember a
I
thing.
know what the name is.
What's that?
I know what the name is.
You probably remember some vocabulary words, right? You remember Traxylene, Quessels, Factor, something about, Leukocyte, Serostania, but you would not understand anything about Traxylene. Nothing at all. This is the way that we tend to teach science in schools. It's a lot of vocabulary. It's disconnected from the real world. You don't really care about it because you don't understand how it relates to your life. Even when we tell you why it's important, we tell you in a way that it still doesn't make any sense to you. And so for most children, this is not real science. It turns them off. They don't want to learn science this way. I don't want to learn science this way. So school science is not real science. This is what school science is. You solve problems for which the answers are already known. You remember doing that?
Yeah.
You report laboratory work by filling in blanks. Yeah, I had those sheets where do this, now record. Do this, now record. Now add A and B together. Now do this, record. Now multiply that times what you got for, and then at the end you get an answer. And you know if you did the experiment right or wrong because your answer either came out the right answer or the wrong answer. When a scientist will tell you there's no way to do an experiment right or wrong. It's an experiment. It's an experiment. You memorize information, you take multiple choice tests. School science is not real science. It's not real science. And we're turning a lot of kids off. So Albert Einstein said this about science. Somebody want to read that?
One had to cram all this stuff into one's mind for examinations, whether one liked it or not. This coercion had such a deterring effect on me that after I had passed the final examination, I found the consideration of any scientific problems distasteful to me for an entire year.
That's pretty powerful, right? School science made Einstein hate science. So when you say science, most people think about Einstein. School science made Einstein hate science. That's pretty amazing when you think about Einstein and what he did in our world regarding science. So let me give you an idea about what real science kind of looks like. Okay? All right, so I got some water here, right? And now one of the things that we teach in science is for children to make good observations, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to pour the water into one of the cups. Now, which cup has the water?
As of right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right, because if I lose you at this point, there's really no reason to go for it. Right? It's in this cup. You just saw me pour it in there. I didn't even do this slowly, right? So here's all you have to do is you just need to keep your eye on the cup that has the water in it. Now I'm going pretty slow right now because you're just learning how to do this and you're just learning how to make good observations. So at this point, it should be pretty easy. You should know where the cup with the water is.
Okay.
Where's the cup with the water?
In the
Middle.
In the middle.
In the
Here?
middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes.
It's not here?
No.
It's not here.
No.
It's right here.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So what we're going to do now is, since you practice, we're going to go a little bit faster this time. And I want you just to pay attention to the cup that has the water in it. Make sure that you don't lose the cup with the water in it. Very good. All right, where's the cup with the water?
Last one. Third.
My
Which
right,
one?
your
This
left.
one here.
No.
Your left.
Other.
Far left. Up to you.
Your left.
Your left.
Yes.
This one?
No.
Wait.
Far and your left.
Yes.
Yes.
Y'all think you're pretty good, huh?
Number
Think you're pretty good. Raise your hand before I stop moving the cups. Yeah, I know where it is. All right, fine. This time we're going to go a
You
whole
put
lot
numbers on the cup.
faster. What's that? Put numbers? Right. Maybe use different colored cups. Okay, this time we're going to go a lot faster. So you need to make sure that you keep your eye on the cup with the water. Don't lose the cup with the water. All right. Okay. And then we go. All right. Where is the
In the
In
middle.
the middle.
The
Oh.
right.
The
Okay, where's the cup with the water?
Your left, my right.
This one here.
No.
No.
Your left.
This one here.
No.
Other
The
one.
one you have not taken. This one, yeah, that one.
No.
What?
So then it must be where?
No way. In the middle, in the
It's
middle.
the middle cup.
Yeah, just switch that.
No.
What? You
No.
cheated. Nuh-uh.
So this is real science.
Nuh-uh.
Wait a minute.
Oh
So
my
this
God.
is real science. Because right now, what are you doing?
Thinking where you put the water.
Yeah, you're starting to think, you're questioning, you're wondering, right? Not only that, I've also activated for you your understanding of the world. You're starting to go, okay, how does the world work? How does the world work? Does water just disappear? Because you all have an intuitive understanding of something we teach in schools called the conservation of matter. You know, that matter doesn't disappear and appear, it changes, but we conserve it. We can change it, we can do all it, but we conserve matter. We teach that in school, although you already know it. It's not something else, we teach something you already know. But right now you are questioning, you're wondering, you want to investigate, you want to experiment, right? You're probably not paying attention to anything I'm saying, right? All you hear is wah, 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 wah. Because what you're really interested in is what? Where'd the water go? Where's the water? Just tell me where the water is, right? Right? Something happened. You're starting to think about, well, maybe if we did this, and if I gave you cups and water right now, you all would sit and try to figure out how to make this happen on your own. This is real science. This is real science. To create this experience for your children, the children that you work with on a daily basis, that's what you all are going to have the opportunity to do. Still not listening to me, are you?
I think it's in the first one.
You think it's
you
in this
must have
cup?
like a secret
You think it's in
opening or
this cup?
something. No, the first one you flipped over.
This cup?
That one.
This one?
No, the one on the table.
This one?
That one. See, it's misty, right?
So what I could do is, I've actually done this experiment with kids. And I've done it on the first day of class. And I've waited the entire school year. And on the last day of class, I said, do y'all want to know what happened to the water? And they'll say to me, yes. Yeah, they remember. They still want to know what happened to the water. And so, you know, if we're talking about kids being engaged, being motivated to learn, track sling's not going to do it. But these kinds of things, these types of opportunities where you get them thinking and wondering, that would do it.
Hey, there it is.
So the water changed. The water changed. How did you feel it?
Wait, you had.
So this is a gel.
Right.
It's a super absorbing polymer, and it's a powder.
So when you pour the water in it,
So you pour the water in.
and you spin it around to mix it,
You got a big chunk
you
over
made
here.
a gel.
So what happens is this polymer is called sodium polyacrylate. It's a super absorbing polymer. So when I poured the water in, it sucked up the water, absorbed the water immediately, and became this gel stuff. Right? We use this commercially. In fact, I would suspect that all of you have actually had sodium polyacrylate on your person. You've worn it around at one point in time in your life.
Deodorant.
Huh?
Deodorant.
Not deodorant.
Okay.
Where would you need something to absorb liquid?
Well, pour that.
A diaper. A diaper. A diaper. So this is the polymer. This is the polymer that we put in diapers. So if you've ever had a baby go to the bathroom and you felt the bath, it kind of feels like
I've seen
this.
this like 4 times.
Yep. So
yeah,
this polymer is what we put in diapers, and it absorbs the water.
This
Right?
is the stuff that falls out when people don't change their children diapers.
Diapers. Right. Or they get that really solid feel to them. This is the stuff. It's sodium polyacrylate, and it's a powder. I'll show you what it looks like.
I'm more interested in powder.
So it looks like this.
Yeah.
This is powder, right? And I put about 3 scoops of this powder, 3 little tiny scoops, about that much. 3 little scoops in the cup, and absorb all that water. So this is real science.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if we can create these types of experiences for kids, then we're really doing real science. So this is why we need to teach more science in our schools and get our kids interested. Here's the other piece of it. And this, you might remember who this was? Remember this guy? I showed you yesterday.
Yes.
What's his name?
He's Robert Moses.
You can also read it. Bob Moses. He did the algebra project, but he says the absence of math literacy in urban and rural communities throughout this country is an issue as urgent as the lack of registered black voters in this city was in 1964. So this is no longer just about workforce development, it's about civil rights. It's about civil rights. So I'm hoping you're seeing the way we're tying the stuff from yesterday into today. And this is why we're doing it, and this is why the Crim Center is doing it. So I want to tell you all my story so you get an idea of kind of where I came from and how I came to be. Right? Oh. So that's me. I was born May 16th, 1972. That's exactly 14 years, 7 months, 11 days, 5 hours, 37 minutes, and 26 seconds after the launch of Sputnik on October 4th, 1957. Why is Sputnik such an important part of our history?
It was our first
It was
little thingies.
Not ours.
no, it was the Russians, and it was big for us because we suspected communists, and we had all these drills or something in school.
It was
Because everyone
mankind's-
were afraid of it.
Wasn't that also mankind's first technical entrance into space? I
So
mean,
it was.
we didn't go,
We didn't do it.
but the machine.
The Russians did it. They sent this satellite, Sputnik, that's it, around and it orbited the Earth. And all Sputnik did was it went around the Earth and it went doo 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 doo. It just sent out a little signal. That's all it did. But for the United States, what it meant is that we were losing in the race around space and technology. We were behind. We were behind. And so all of a sudden we started doing all this stuff in schools around math and science. Does it sound familiar? Because we're doing it again.
Yeah.
We're doing it again. We're not competitive. We're doing it all over again. Right. So this is so this is the age I kind of came up through when we were doing all this stuff in the schools. This is me on my baptism day. I was the firstborn of John and Yvonne Williams. My father was a military man, United States Coast Guard. My mother was actually trained as an educator and later got into technology. Think of that. She did database management and things like that. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. For the most part, like I said, I was military, so I bounced around a little bit, but I got to New Orleans very young and I didn't leave until I was about to start high school, so I kind of consider myself a New Orleanian. New Orleans is home. I went to Gene Gordon Elementary School. I was a Griffin. Gene Gordon was a very special school. We had a very dynamic, charismatic, very wise principal who really believed in children, kind of like Dr. Crim. He believed in children and nurturing children. So as an example of that, we got together every morning on the blacktop and we sang together as a school. It was just our tradition. We got together and we sang. This is my third grade class. My third grade teacher was Cynthia Cousins. I'm still in touch with her to this day. Wow. This is the student teacher. I don't remember her name. But this is my third grade class. My first crush right there. I'm still in touch with her as well. You see me?
Yeah, you're the one from Mount though.
Where?
At the front.
Here?
Nope.
Here?
Nope.
Here?
The red
Yeah.
shirt, the second
Not-
row.
Are you tall?
You in the yellow?
In the
That's
yellow.
me.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him.
See him, right? All right, so Gene Gordon, like I said, was a cool school, great school. We were taught that we could be anything we wanted to be in the world. If we wanted to be president of the United States, we could be president of the United States. And so it was a great place to go to school. It's very diverse, you can see. Of course, that's New Orleans also. So it was a really wonderful place. And I really thought I was very smart. I thought I was very talented. I thought I was kind of funny, you know. And I was a happy kid. Look at the kids in this picture. They're smiling. And it's not because it's picture day, it's because we were happy children. Third grade, I love Miss Cousins. Third grade was a great year. Third grade was also the year of the test, as I remember. So my mother took my brother and I, have a brother who's 3 years younger than I am, took us down to this old house in one of the wealthier parts of New Orleans. That's not the house. That's just kind of how I remember it in my mind's eye. But inside the house, there was all this stuff, like old books and antiques that my mother would say, don't touch it because what?
It was bright.
Yeah, well, no, don't touch it because we can't afford to buy it, right? We can't afford to replace it. And what I remember quite vividly was this old player piano. You know what a player piano is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you put a scroll in it and it plays by itself. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty amazing house, and I spent a good bit of the time there just exploring this person's house. So it was the house of this educational psychologist. Once again, that's not her. That's just kind of how I remember her in my mind's eye when I put in white woman, white hair with glasses. That's what Google pops up. And that's kind of what I remember. And so we were there to be tested to be in the gifted and talented program. Right? Any of you in gifted in school? A couple people. Challenge, I think they may call it now. It's the gifted
Challenge?
program. Challenge.
Yeah, they call it
At least someone's counting it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
challenge.
not supposed to use the word gifted.
Right. So we were being tested for the gifted program. So she comes into the room, introduces herself, she takes my brother out of the room, and it seems like 2 minutes later they're coming back. The test was over. And I'm thinking, wow, if he can do it, I'm gonna blow this test out of the water. That's simple. This is gonna be a breeze. So we go back into the room, and I don't know if you all have ever taken an IQ test or taken one of these tests, but they ask you to start to do things that just really make no sense at all. So they say, take these beans and move them from this cup and put them in this cup over here, solve this math problem, put these blocks together in a certain way. And she asked me, what is the purpose of a license plate on a car? And I said, so if your car gets lost, you can identify your car. And she says, no. And I said, well, maybe if somebody steals your car, the police can find your car. And she says, no. And I gave answer after answer, and to every answer I gave, she said, no, no, no. I got really frustrated. I felt really stupid, and I started to cry. At which point the test was over. And I think there's a rule somewhere. If you start crying, test is over. So I started crying, and she escorted me out of the room. And we went back into the room, packed up our stuff, got our belongings, and we got ready to walk out, go home. And the psychologist pulled my mother aside, and she said something to her. Now, I didn't know what she said at the time, but my mother told me years later. So this is what she said to my mother. She said, your youngest son is fine. She's talking about my brother Rodney. I will definitely recommend him for the gifted program. Your older son would not be a good fit for the program, however, I cannot recommend him for admission. She's talking about me now. In fact, I would not have very high expectations for his success in school. He will most likely go to college, but I doubt that he will graduate. So this is third grade. Third grade. Somebody makes an assessment of my capacity to learn and to succeed and says that I'll probably go to college, but I probably won't graduate. And that assessment then followed me for the rest of my time in school. So that means when the gifted kids went to the science museum, I stayed at school. And then later on in middle school, when people took algebra in the 7th grade, I took pre-algebra. And on down the road, when everybody took advanced science classes, I took the regular science classes. I didn't take calculus in high school because I was always a step behind. Not only that, I could see it. Kids know. They know what the gifted or even we call it challenge. They know those are the smart kids. And if those are the smart kids, that means the kids that aren't in there are what? They're dumb. They're not smart. They're not smart. And so I believe that too. So I believe that I was probably not a very good math, not a very good math student, not a very good science student. In fact, if you ask me about it, I'd tell you I hate math and science. I'd say that to you. And it's because of this one assessment, right? In my 11th grade year, my mother took us to King's Dominion. Anybody know King's Dominion? Yeah. Okay. Up in Richmond, Virginia. It's kind of Virginia's version of Six Flags. It's an amusement park. And so at King's Dominion at the time had a roller coaster called the King Cobra. The King Cobra started up high, up on a hill, and it dropped straight down, it went into a loop, and then it went straight up, and the track stopped. And then it came backwards, back to the loop, back up. And that was the entire ride. It took 10 seconds for the entire ride, right? I'd never ridden a roller coaster before in my life. And I decided on that day I was going to ride my first roller coaster. It was going to be the King Cobra. I had a cousin that said he'd go with me, right? And he did, right up until we were about to get on the car, and then he turned and ran. And I rode my first roller coaster by myself. And I got off of it and I said, my God, why didn't somebody tell me about these things? These are wonderful. And I fell in love with roller coasters right then and there, and I decided for the rest of my life, all I want to do is build roller coasters. Right? So these are some of my designs from when I was in high school. So this is a roller coaster where the track is in between, and the car rides on the side of the track instead of on top of it. It rides on either side. Right? This is a suspended roller coaster that you kind of get into like a little capsule, and you ride underneath the track.
Wow.
And this is another one of my suspended roller coasters. Rides underneath the track, hangs. Now we're building lots of suspended roller coasters now. In fact, I was on a plane going somewhere, and I saw this one. They built this one too. So I could have been making lots of money as a designer. So here's a kid in his 11th grade year of high school who thinks he's really bad at math and science, and all of a sudden, what do I want to be?
roller coaster.
What do you call it? What do you call these people?
Engineer.
Want to be an engineer? So I started applying to all these schools of engineering. Virginia Tech, I think I applied to Hampton. I was up in Virginia, so I was applying to all these schools of engineering. And of course, just praying that somebody wouldn't look too closely at my grades and would let me get into an engineering program. One university, Norfolk State University, which is a black college up in Norfolk, Virginia, said we don't have an engineering program, but we have a physics program. And they're the same thing, which is a flat out lie. It's just a lie. They're not the same thing. But they said if you come here and you major in physics, not only will we admit you, but we'll give you a full ride. We'll give you room, board, books, tuition, meal plan. At which point my mom and dad said, you're going to Norfolk State University. And so I enrolled at Norfolk State University as a physics major. And as a physics major, you know, I'm sitting in classes with kids who have been doing this their entire life. They were born to do science. You know, they knew this from elementary school. And so the first math class they drop you into as a physics major is what? Calculus. There's no ramping up. They put you right into a calculus class your first day. Right? And I'd never taken calculus before in my life. I think I got as far as maybe algebra 2 in school. And so I'm sitting in this calculus class with all these brilliant kids that have been studying science. They were science Olympiad kids. You want to take a guess at what I got on my first calculus class? Got the grade I got in my first calculus class? A D. A D, a B, maybe a B, maybe a D. I actually got an A in my first calculus class. Yeah, can you imagine? I believe it. Yeah. I continued to make A's at Norfolk State University as a physics major, and actually graduated as the top physics major at Norfolk State when I graduated, and left state and got a full ride to Georgia Tech. Yeah. So I went to Georgia Tech and studied biomechanical engineering at Georgia Tech. I was studying how cells stick to other things, how cells stick to things. Then we can kind of control how cancer spreads. Because the way cancer spreads is you'll get a cancer somewhere, and then cancer cells will break off, travel through your bloodstream, stick somewhere else, grow. And then that's how cancer spreads. So if we can control how cancer cells stick or don't stick, we can stop cancer from spreading. So that's the kind of work I was doing at Georgia Tech. But unfortunately, while I was at Tech, I was also doing a lot of work in schools. I was teaching in schools, I was developing curricula, I spent some time at NSF, and I was really frustrating my advisor. Really frustrated, because he wanted me at the bench doing science, and I was doing science in schools. And so I left Georgia Tech, and I went over to Emory University and finished my PhD there in science education. Now, it was when they hooded me, when I got my PhD, and they put that hood on over my shoulders, that my mother told me what that educational psychologist had said years and years before. Because she was very proud. She was very, very proud. We're looking for that woman to this day. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about this, right? Is that I don't tell you this story to brag. I'm telling you this story because I think this is something that's happening to lots of our children every single day in this country. Is that there are children whose potential is being limited. It's being defined for them in second grade, in third grade, in kindergarten. Right? We're telling kids what they are capable of doing and not doing in this world. And so we talk about this pipeline into science, but we're pushing kids out of the pipeline. They're not leaving, we're pushing them out. And so there has to be some ways that we can think about doing education in a different way so that we can actually give kids an opportunity to really enjoy science and to find ways to be involved in it that's exciting for them. Everybody may not be a scientist. Some of us may be college professors, right? So here's the thing. I want you to think about some things real quick. Oh, okay, here we go. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Let's wait. So, I want you to close your eyes. Don't go to sleep, just close your eyes. Close your eyes. Clear your mind. You see nothing at all in your mind. Then all of a sudden you kind of see kind of the crack of light around the door. Just the crack of light around the door. And then the door opens. And standing there in the door, looking right at you, is a chemist. Look at that person. Okay, but look at that chemist standing there in front of you. Okay? Everybody see that person? All right, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Give me one characteristic that you saw.
Holding test tubes of chemicals.
Okay, so they were holding some test tubes of chemicals, right? Good, good. So that's what made you know they were a chemist, right? We'll play with that a little bit later some more. Give me another characteristic.
White on black coat.
How many of you saw a lab coat? Lab coat? Or you saw glasses? Anybody see glasses?
I saw safety glasses.
Safety goggles. You might see a pocket protector with the pins. Yeah. Okay. Great. What else?
Hair back.
Hair back. Let me ask you, what color was the hair?
I think it was brown or
Brown. Okay. Brown or black? Okay, great.
black.
Was it neatly kept?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's we're moving the needle thing. Anybody seen different kinds of hair?
I did.
What did you see?
That was like ponytails, actually, like little barrettes.
We are making progress. Okay, so people tend to see white hair, the crazy white hair, right? That's what they tend to see. This is great, y'all see. All right, keep going. What else you see?
A woman.
You saw a woman. How many of you saw a woman? Wow, we are making progress.
Well, mine was a white man at first, and then it just became a black woman.
You caught yourself. Let's say Dr. Williams' class, I better switch this around.
Out of a white went there. It just became a black woman.
But you started as a white man. That's interesting.
Mine kind of went through different races.
Oh, so you.
No, because like I have some friends, so like when you
So,
say
okay, let's do this.
so it went through the different.
How many of you
all
saw a
different-
woman? I'm interested. How many saw a woman? Okay. And how many of you saw a person of color? That's interesting. All right. So, you all are the kind of the outlier. Maybe that things are changing. That's great. One of the things we do as researchers, we'll ask children, 5 years old, kindergartners, draw me a scientist. Draw me a picture of a scientist. Right? By and large, children draw. This is a generalization. By and large, they draw old, white men with lab coats and glasses and pocket protectors. And if we were putting them in an environment, they'd be with beakers and test tubes and things like that. They tend to draw this guy, right? That's our conception of a scientist. That's what a scientist looks like to our children at 5 years old. So what does that mean to girls? You're not supposed to be a scientist, or to children of color, you're not supposed to be a scientist, or to young people, you gotta be almost dead to do science, right? Or in fact, if I ask you to name some scientists right now, you probably name dead white men in lab coats and glasses, right? Think of some scientists right now, right? And so this is our conception of who does science. And the lab coat and the glasses, what do we call those people? You can say it. Nerds, right? Right? And so if you don't want to be a nerd, if you don't want to be a social outcast, you don't do science. In fact, if you don't want to work in a dungeon with test tubes and beakers bubbling around, you don't do science. So then we wonder why kids don't want to do science. So part of your job in your classrooms where you're working is to give kids another way of thinking about who does science and why. Right? So who does science? Edward Jenner, right? Dead white man, right? Lab coat. What did Edward Jenner do in your history books? You remember?
Nope.
Anybody remember Edward Jenner? Edward Jenner was responsible for finding the cure for smallpox. Inoculations, vaccinations, that kind of thing, right? So Edward Jenner, when you read the history books, and we talk about in biology in high school, smallpox and viruses and things like that, we talk about Edward Jenner. But somebody before Edward Jenner was doing this work. There was a country doctor in the colonies here in the United States, well, it wasn't the United States at the time, it was the colonies. Zabadell Boylston, he was a country doctor. It's a picture of him. See him right there? He's giving an inoculation. It's a painting of Zabadell Boylston giving an inoculation. Look at the time where he lived and the time when Edward Jenner lived. Okay? So he was doing it before Jenner. Zabadell Boylston, country doctor in the colonies. How did he know about it? How did he know how to do it? Turned out that Cotton Mather, who was a fanatical minister, told him how to do it. Told him that, this is how you inoculate against smallpox. Now, Cotton Mather is a minister. He doesn't know anything about science necessarily. He's not a man of science. He's a man of God. He's a religious guy. So how did he know about inoculations? How did he know about vaccination? Right? What's that? Experiment? So not with him, not Cotton Mather. He wasn't a scientist. So there is a missing piece of the puzzle here. There's a missing piece of the puzzle. What happens with a vaccination? Anybody know how vaccinations, inoculations work? When you go and get that shot, the flu shot, for instance.
It's a deactivated virus, right?
That's right. It's a weakened form of the virus. So you put that into your body, and then your body develops a response, an immune response. And then, so the next time you see the full-blown virus, you've already developed all the antibodies to defeat it. So in any type of sickness or illness, it's always a race between your immune system and the virus. If the virus wins, you die. If your immune system wins, you live. Even a snake bite's the same way, right? You get snake venom. If it cuts up your body so quickly that your body can't beat it before it beats you, and you end up dying. But if you get the antitoxin, then you'll have the antibodies to actually kill the venom before it kills you. That's the way common inoculations work. So the missing person here that we never talk about was an enslaved African who had been inoculated. The Africans had been inoculating against smallpox for years and understood the science behind it. Right? Give me a volunteer. One volunteer. Come on up here, African. Be my African. Right. Unfortunately, you're the one with smallpox. Okay. So, tell me one more time. Devon. Okay, get him down. So, Devon has smallpox. What does that mean for Devon?
Yeah, he's not hired. No, I'm just kidding.
Devon will be serving in Team America this year. In fact, Devon won't be doing much of anything in a little while's time, right? Because what's going to happen to Devon? Devon's going to die. Devon's going to die. Devon's got smallpox. Now, in most cultures, you get smallpox that's extremely contagious, and we don't want everybody else to get sick, right? So how we handle Devon? What we do?
Isolate.
Right. Isolate them. Y'all are being nice. 'Cause isolate them means put them in a room somewhere in the community. What some people would do is actually, you maybe blindfold Devon, march him way out somewhere far, far away from the rest of us, give him some food, give him some water, and say,
Good luck.
good luck. And then we would make sure he doesn't follow us back, right? And then we leave Devon out in the wilderness to die. Because the last thing we want to happen is for everybody else to get smallpox. And so you take one for the team.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you. And so here's what the Africans understood how to do. And I'm saying the Africans, I'd much rather say the people. I don't know what people it was, because Africans are a continent.
Yeah.
Lots of different people on the continent. But what they understood how to do, when you get smallpox, you get these boils on your skin, full of pus, right? What's in pus? Anybody know what's in pus?
Infection.
So yes, so it's white blood cells, dead white blood cells, which have been fighting the disease, and somebody else said the infection, the virus. So it's basically the war zone. It's what's been fighting the virus and the virus in the pus. And so what they would do is they take a thorn and they burst that pus-filled boil, and they get pus on the thorn, and then they take that pussy thorn and they go around to everybody else in the community and scratch that pus into everybody else's blood, right? So what are they doing?
Vaccinating.
They're vaccinating. They're giving an inoculation, right? Now, what's going to happen to Devon?
He's gonna die.
He's still going to die, right? But what's going to happen to the rest of us? We're inoculated. We're going to live, right? Based on his.
Oh, you're the chosen child.
Yes. The chosen sacrifice. So thank you, Devon.
Yeah.
So do y'all kind of get it? So the thing is that when we talk about inoculation, if we only talk about Edward Jenner, then we're replicating this idea that only certain people do science. We're forgetting about this very important piece. Now the thing is that you have to dig for this information.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you all are going to be able to do, because you won't have the pressures of the school system on your back. You can dig for ways of making this stuff really very real and relevant to kids. How do we discover scientific knowledge? Here's another example. How do we discover knowledge, scientific knowledge? You learned it in school. Don't think too hard.
Research.
But what do you teach kids? How do you do it? How do you do research? What's the
Scientific method.
scientific method? Right? Just say, don't think too hard. Scientific method. You've been learning this since 3rd grade. Scientific method. What is it? And you learn it in a bunch of different ways. What are the steps?
Hypothesis.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, right? Right. It kind of looks. And there are some people may add another step in here or there. Where do we get this from? Anybody know?
Appointment.
Well, yes, but now you're all supposed to say that. Right? That's a whole white. Francesco Reddy, right? Francesco Reddy. Yeah, you remember this, right?
Yeah.
You remember the experiment?
No.
So people once thought that maggots came out of the meat,
Oh, yeah.
right? right? It's spontaneous. It was called spontaneous generation. So you have a hunk of meat, and then the meat would produce maggots. And people didn't believe that. Some people said, oh, maybe, maybe not. So what he did was he did an experiment. He put a hunk of meat on a piece of table. He put 2 hunks of meat on the table, as a matter of fact. 1 hunk he covered with a bell jar. He covered it up. Which got maggots?
The one that said
The one that wasn't covered.
The one that wasn't covered up. Why? Where did maggots come from?
Flies.
Flies.
Flies lay eggs on the meat and then the eggs turn into maggots.
That's right. So flies come lay eggs on the meat, maggots. Flies couldn't get to this meat over here, so he got no maggots. So he did an experiment. Scientific method. So he's the one that kind of created this scientific method. But everybody doesn't do science this way. This is one way of doing science, right? What's this stuff called? Anybody know?
Popcorn.
Popcorn or corn, but it's a specific type of corn.
Maize?
Maize. It's called maize, right? So that's why you have these little colored, people call it Indian corn, right? We won't be calling it that anymore.
Colored corn.
It's called maize, right? And so if you think about it, the First Nations, people of the First Nations, when they domesticated, they were the ones that were responsible for us having corn in this country. The first corn plants in this country were these little tiny kernels of corn. And they figured out how to plant it and how to domesticate it, right? And the way that they did it was they would grow the corn, harvest the corn, and then the biggest stalks of corn, they would use that to plant. Next year, what would happen? Would you get bigger or smaller?
Bigger.
Larger. Bigger corn. And they harvest it, and the bigger pieces, they use that to plant. Over time, the corn got bigger and bigger and bigger until we got to this corn that we have today, right? They didn't use the scientific method to do that. So they were doing genetic science here, but they were doing it based on other forms, other ways of doing science. So one of the things you need to understand is your kids know how to do a lot of science already. If you limit them to this, then you're limiting their opportunity to do science. So figure out ways to explore science in a number of different ways. Okay, how do we make it more real and how do we make it more relevant? I'm going to jump past this because I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to give you an example. I want to give you an example. 15 minutes, give me 15 minutes. Okay. All right, so we're actually, so what I did, I told you I did work in Charlotte. So I designed an entire lesson that was meant to connect with what my kids already knew, right? And what they already knew was music. So I wanted to talk to them about sound, but I used music to do it. And we're going to do that today. And we're going to try to blow through it very quickly since I only have 15 minutes. All right, here we go. So what we're talking about is how to make science real and relevant. So we want to teach kids about sound. Let's find something that they already know about, and let's build on that. So the science behind music. So one of the things that I wanted to get my kids to think about is, first of all, is to start thinking about how much they use their ears. We're very visually oriented in our world. We think a lot, we use our eyes, but we make sense of our world through our ears, but I want to turn them on to that. Let's make sure I got sound. All right, let's see if this works. Applause. Okay, good, good, let's see.
Police
Oh, good, oh, pretty good. Let's see, go.
Water.
Train.
Airplane.
Bees? No. It's Dolby Digital sound.
Exactly.
You had to hit the end. Yeah, you had to hit the end every movie.
Let's see.
Okay.
What is it? Cash register. Now, isn't that interesting? Because you all have probably never heard of cash register.
Right.
But we still use the sound.
That's interesting. The toy cash register. Let's see. Helicopter. So you see how much of the world you just interpret just from sound. We don't think about it very often, but we use our ears to really make sense of our world. Without our ears, we lose a lot of information. So what we're going to do is take this idea of sound and begin to go toward music and create music. What do you already know about sound?
It comes from vibration.
Comes from vibrations. Good. Other things.
It has different volumes.
Right. Okay. So you have volume. Right. What else?
Wavelengths.
What about wavelengths?
Frequencies.
What about wavelengths and frequencies?
I know there's a long one and then the short one.
Yeah, it's kind of like Traxolene.
Exactly.
What else?
Off that wavelengths thing, the bigger the wavelengths, the lower the sound. And the smaller and faster they are,
Uh-huh.
the more high pitched the sound.
Okay, good. So you talk about pitch, and what you're actually talking about is frequency, right? So let's do this. Let's play. So somebody said vibration, And if you can start with vibration, then we can create sound. So anytime you have vibration, certain types of vibration, you can create sound. So I'm going to give you a piece of equipment here. I'm going to give you, anybody know what these are? You can grab one, don't. Remember I said science is first. Not pitchforks, close.
They're, vibrate. Oh my God.
I got the name for them. We know what to do.
What are they? What are they?
Vibrate.
Vibrators.
Oh.
Right, no.
Right for that video.
Different class. Different class.
Good on video, that's also primitive.
Type of fork. It's a
Tuning fork.
It's a tuning fork. Now, the way a tuning fork works is you hold it at the base here, somewhere at the base, and you just hit it. You can hit it on your, and then you put it to your ear. You can't really hear it out here, but you can hear it when it's right close to your ear. Now, the way you hold it is you don't hold it flat like this and hit it. You hold it on its side, and you're going to hit one side of it, and it'll get a good buzz on it. And you'll hear it really, really, really buzzing. Okay. Now, those times, we call those things times, are vibrating really, really quickly. You can't see them vibrating. Right? And kids can't see them vibrating either. So the point we're trying to make is create vibration, create sound, and create vibration. So the way you can show that it's vibrating is give it a good whack table, right? And then stick it down in that water that I just put on your table.
You could have warned us.
Oh.
Wait, are we?
So just get it and stick the tip, just the tip of it right in the water.
I hit it
Give
too
it a good
hard.
whack.
I hit it too hard. Oh, you're too hard.
No, yeah, hard is better.
No, I'm getting splashed over here.
Probably, but it's not this high pitch. Probably a lot lower pitch.
Yeah, I'm making a mess.
All right. So you should have got a splash when you put it in there, right? The other thing you can do is you can hit it and put it on the side of the cup, and you get a drink. You'll put it right on the tip of the cup, right on the edge. Yeah. You'll get a nice sound there as well. Or take it, put it on your thumbnail, and you can feel it on your thumbnail as well. Okay. So these are all the different ways of showing kids that when things vibrate, they create sound. Now here's the other thing. I'm trying to push it real quick. What do we hear with?
Our ears.
That little
Our
thing
eardrum.
on
Our
our
ears. Our ears are, yeah, you're going deep, you're
Oh,
going
sorry.
deep. That's fine, that's cool. All those different pieces, the anvil, the stirrup, all those things, right? So it's our ear canal. You also hear with your skull. And most people don't know this, that you also hear with your skull. So if you look on the, feel on the, right behind your ear, there's this bone, this little knot, right behind your ear, right? Look on the bottom of your tuning fork, there's a little square there. A little square on a rectangle on the bottom of your tuning fork. Just look right there. It's shaped like a little rectangle on the bottom, right? What you're going to do is you're going to hit your tuning fork, and then you're going to put that little square on that bone. And you're going to hear the tuning fork. And if you hear the tuning fork, you're not using your ear to hear. It's actually your skull that's actually transmitting the sound. So people who have a damaged, who are deaf or have a damaged ear canal, or they can hear it with their skulls also. So that's another way of hearing. All right, so vibration. So we understand how to create vibration and create sound. So that's the basis of sound, that's the basis of music. Let's create some vibrations.
Where do you buy these?
Who? Tuning forks? Tuning forks you can buy online. Oh, actually, how about just take one, pass it down. Take one, pass it down. How am I doing? All right? Because Beach ain't next, right?
Right.
She's not.
She is. They set up on the same floor already.
So take a piece of string.
We can make a phone.
Take a, no, there, yeah, so exactly. No, we're not gonna do the phone. All right, so you got a piece of string. So who plays musical instruments? Who played, that's always the better question. Who played a musical instrument? What instrument?
Clarinet.
Clarinet,
Piano, clarinet, flute,
piano,
clarinet, and flute.
clarinet, and flute.
Violin.
Violin, me too.
Snare drum.
Snare drum.
Piano and
Piano. Anybody else?
Cello.
Cello, who's cello? Cello, cool.
Trombone.
Trombone. Anything else? Okay, we almost got almost every kind of family represented. So we're going to build here, right? We're going to build a very quick string instrument, like a violin or a cello, right? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to take that piece of string and you're going to stick it up so that the cup, you're holding the cup this way, you're going to stick it up through the hole in the bottom of the cup and tie it off inside the cup. Do you have a cup? So push it up through the bottom of the cup and tie it off inside the cup.
Should it be like, should the string be met anywhere or not?
So I tie the knot pretty close to the top because you want a good length of string hanging out of the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember, if we get something to vibrate, we can create sound. And you may want to make double knot it so you get a nice big knot in there so it won't come back through the hole. Okay, you got it? All right, everybody got one? All right, so here's, what you've got now is what the beginning of an instrument called a cuica. So if we can create something, create vibration, we can create sound. So what you're going to do, you've got your string holding, coming down the bottom here. Hold the string between your thumb and your forefinger like that. Hold the cup here and just run your finger down the string. Bring in the water, get it wet, dip it right on in there, get it really, really wet. And then when it's really, really wet, pull it out, and the same thing, do the same thing. Run your finger down the string, and you should get a different sound. There we go. There we go. There we go.
Okay, this is not Jurassic Park.
All right, so what's creating the vibration?
The string against the cup.
Yeah.
The string against
The cup.
the cup.
No, our fingers against the string.
The fingers against the string. The cup, this
It's
cup is there
amplifying.
for amplification to
Yeah.
make the sound longer. So really what's happening is your finger as it slides down the string is starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping, and that's creating vibration. The same way that when we bow a musical instrument like a violin, the bow starts and stops, and that creates vibration on the string. So anytime we create vibration, we create sound. So that's the first step. Let's take it a step further here. Grab a straw. Grab a straw, take the straw out of the container. Okay. And what you're going to do, I'm going to leave the paper on so you can see it really, really well, is you're going to cut on one side, and you're going to turn the straw, and you're going to cut on the other side, and you're going to get a little point at the top of your straw. All right? Scissors. Just do it kind of quickly. Click, click. How am I doing?
We did an experiment with like
Tell me.
string.
It's 11:34.
Put water into it.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. That's easy. That's easy.
And then we had kept at the end where the water was. And he turned all big cups over and there was no water. And it turned out that poured water into this cup that was filled like a powder, like a polymer. So this is what happens when water is I know. It's like, you're not even getting what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to figure out what happened.
Watch that. Another.
I'm just going blah, blah, blah. Lecture. It was stuck on the water.
They found a way to
I was really like, where do I go, right?
strengthen that balance.
These are scissors. Scissors. Okay. Scissors. So once you've got your little bird beak there, you got two little, triangles. You're kind of going to smush them so that the two triangles kind of lie a little bit flatter. So what we're building here is what's a reed instrument. This is a reed instrument. Okay. So you're going to smush those two little bird beaks on top of each other. You don't want it so flat that you can't blow into it. Sometimes I'll pull it through my teeth just to kind of flatten it out a little bit more because you want your reed to be flat, not really, really round. And so you don't want it so flat that you can't blow through it.
Do we do it at an angle?
So yeah, so it's going to be like that. So it's a clip, clip. On your side. So you get a little point at the top. And then you're just going to pull it, you're just going to kind of just flatten it out or pull it through your teeth, or you can put it on the table and pull the scissors over it a couple times, just flattening it out a little bit. Okay? So now we've got this little reed instrument. I heard clarinet. Who plays clarinet? Clarinet. What vibrates on clarinet?
The reed.
The reed.
Yeah.
The little wood piece that flutters back and forth. So if we're building a reed instrument and that reed needs to vibrate, we can't put our lips on it because it won't vibrate. It can't move if our lips are on it. So you're going to kind of put your lips a little bit further down. So if this is my mouth, these are my lips, this is the inside of my mouth there, just kind of floating in the inside of my mouth. So you're going to do that and blow as hard as you can. like you're blowing a balloon. You should get a sound. I'll take the paper off of it. You should get a sound. There we go. There we go.
Oh, you all are wonderful.
There we go. So you gotta blow really, really hard, and sometimes you gotta. All right.
You have that student that's like, yes.
So this is a very simple reed instrument. Now, what's vibrating on that is the reed. As you blow across it, that reed vibrates up, very, very quickly, creates sound, right? So anytime you get something to vibrate, we can create sound. Now, but a musical instrument that just makes one sound is a very boring musical instrument, right? So now we got to talk about how do we change the way something sounds, and that's when we talk about frequency. So when I talk to kids, the kids I was working with, like I said, they understood music already. I want to talk about sound. So frequency. Frequency is something that happens a given number of times in a given period of time. So if I'm running laps and I run 5 laps in 10 minutes, that's a frequency. Something happens a certain number of times in a given period of time. So those tuning forks I gave you, look at the tuning fork, pick up the tuning fork, and on the tuning fork is a little number. See a number? Mm-hmm. What number?
384.
384. What number? 288.
256.
256. Okay? That is telling you that that tuning fork vibrates back and forth that many times every second. That's how fast. So that's a frequency that they're telling you. That's the frequency of that tuning fork. So different tuning forks sound differently. So here's what I'm going to do real quick. So we're going to calculate the frequency of the beats per minute. The beats per minute, that's a frequency. Beats, number of times it happens per minute, right? Off of a different kind of hip hop cut. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to start the music. All I want you to do is count the beats that you hear. And you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You just keep counting. Don't do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. Don't do that. Just count the number of beats that you hear. All right, you ready? We'll start you off slow. We're going to count for 15 seconds. Okay. Crystal, can you time for me? Or do you have an idea?
Sure.
Oh, no, I got it. All right. All right, you ready? I'll tell you when to start counting. I'm going to let you listen to the music for a second here. Got it? Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, start. Stop. Great. Did y'all count? Did you get a chance? How many of you got to count?
I was old.
You were off. Off.
It
So
was too many distractions for me.
too many distractions so
Count.
in the music to count.
Too many beats.
Yeah.
Here we go. That's interesting though. That's interesting. Here. All right, we'll try it again. I'll use a different sample this time. Here we go. You ready?
I tried.
I'll let you listen to it first. Well, let's listen to it first. Ready? Here we go. Okay. Okay. You got it? You got a beat going?
Yeah.
Ready? Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Stop. Okay. How many people counted? Did you get a count that time? How many did you get?
40?
40. Great. Anybody else count? Boys, y'all should see the kids. Y'all should see the kids. 36. Got 36. 36. 40, 36. 27.
I got 20.
Now here's the thing. You're getting different numbers. So here's the thing. It depends on what? What you do. It depends on how you count it. Depends on how you count it. Right? Right? Here we go. Watch. Give me one way to count. You're already doing it, right? That's one way. Right? That's one way to count.
Oh,
Right? That's one way. Give me another way. Give me another way to count. Good. That's one way. Right? Right? Give me another way.
I was on this one.
That's another way. That's another way. That's another way to count. Right? Right? No house people. Right? Right? These are all we call harmonics when we're talking about sound. It's kind of the same frequency, just multiples of each other. So one person may count 20, another person counts 40, another person may count 80. All the same frequency, but all will create different sounds. So here's what the thing about the straw. So if we look at the straw, if we want to change the way this vibrates, because what's really vibrating is the column of air that's in there. The easiest way to do it is to change the shape of the instrument. So let's see if we can get it to work. Here we go. Now mine doesn't work. It was working before. This is my straw. Am I blowing smoke? Oh, here we go. So, what happened as it got shorter and shorter and shorter?
Higher.
Higher and higher pitch. The frequency changed. It's got less space to vibrate. It vibrates faster and faster and faster. So faster vibration, how does the pitch change? Goes higher pitch, higher pitch. Now we're going to sound. So now we can actually play some music. So what I did, I got some PVC pipe. Because I spent a lot of time at Home Depot. Very little light. Grab a pipe. Grab a piece of pipe. Each piece of pipe kind of has a color.
With the high pitch.
Are we blowing it?
You can light, I wouldn't recommend it. So each piece of pipe you'll notice is a different length. It's a different length. So you should sound it. So these are called palm pipes. It's just PVC pipe that I've cut, but I've cut them to specific lengths to make them to vibrate at a certain frequency. So if you take the pipe and you donk it, that's the scientific term, donk, you're going to look at that. You get a sound. Yeah, kind of cool. Now, each of you has a color. Each of you has a color. Somebody should have a white. Who has a white? It doesn't have a band on it. It just says W. That's it. Like that one. That was a white. That's a white. Somebody should have a red. Who has a red? Okay, great. Orange. You have orange. Orange. Yellow. Right. Green. Green. Blue. Who has blue? Blue. Purple. Great. And black. Anybody got black? Great. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call your color, and you're going to give me one donk. Just donk. That's it. Just one. Okay. Ready? Instruments at the ready. White, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black. All right. So what I was able to do is, because I understand what the frequency is for the note A, I can cut the pipe to make it vibrate like that. Right? So now we can play some music. Now we're at music.
Oh, wow.
Right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to point to the color, and I want you just to play your color. One donk at the color. Okay, you ready? Start with orange. Who's got orange? Ready? Here we go. So I'm hoping you all are seeing how these things kind of connect, right? So kids already knew a lot of science. What you're trying to do is layer what you want them to learn on what they already know. So they already know music. We'll use music to teach them about sound. Okay? This is what happens when we're making science very real and very relevant for kids. Okay, does this make sense? You got it? Did I do it at 15?
You did.
Okay.
I hate to cut you off.
I'll be back. I'll come back another day. I'll be back
Great.
4 times.
Great.
Right, it was fun.
Were you all able to do fire?